Hallo und herzlich willkommen zu Love, Life and Other Stories, dein Podcast für mehr Inspiration und Lebensmut. Ich bin Katrin Andrea Preisner, systemischer Coach und Gründerin von Heart and Mind Journey. In meinem Podcast spreche ich mit Menschen, die ihrem Herzen gefolgt sind, Träume verwirklicht und Hindernisse überwunden haben. Manchmal gegen den Strom, aber immer mit Mut und Herz. Schön, dass du dabei bist. Lass uns jetzt gemeinsam eintauchen in die Geschichten, die das Leben schreibt. Hello and a warm welcome to a new episode of Love, Life and Other Stories. Today I have a very special guest, my neighbor actually right now in Dharamkot, Meghan Barnes. So a warm welcome to you, Meghan. I'm very glad that you accepted my invitation for the interview. So yeah,
it's interesting to think, I have an interesting life, but some people say, oh, you should write a book, so okay, let's talk about it.
Yeah, nice that you're here. So maybe you can give us a short introduction about yourself, who you are, where you're coming from, where you're living now, and maybe also what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm from the US. I'm from a small town in northern New York State, right on Lake Ontario. And I grew up there. It's very cold, very winter, like so much snow. And after college, I moved to the southern parts of the East Coast of the US. And I lived there for about 17 years. And so those two areas are very different from each other. And now I'm with my husband traveling in India, who's Indian, and we'll talk about that. And so that's how we met you here in Darmstadt.
Yeah, very nice. And now we are neighbors for almost over a month. I think, or 2 months.
Almost 2 months, yeah.
Yeah, since I arrived. So yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Very good neighborhood, yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely loved having you next door. You're absolute sweetheart.
Same, yeah.
Thank you.
No, you would that's why I invited you, because you have so many experiences, so many transformations behind you, and I guess there are many more to come. So maybe you can take us with you to your journey, where you started, what brought you also to India, and things like that.
Sure.
Maybe you can share this.
Sure.
Yeah.
So growing up, kind of a brief little recap of, my background. Growing up, all I wanted to do was become a lawyer, work in politics, and went to college and graduated in 3 years, and realized in my sophomore year, which is why I graduated in 3 years, I had wanted nothing to do with politics. And when I was in high school, I was involved in a lot of political groups and helped people with campaigns and all of these different things. And then I had no clue what I wanted to do, and worked for the college for a year after I graduated. So I was still at the college, but working a professional job now, and realized that I was a recruiter and in admissions, and basically telling the kids that they should do what I just did, which was spend a lot of money on a degree, but who really knows what they want to do at 16, 17, 18 years old when you're applying for colleges and things like that, And I just didn't feel comfortable with it. And so I left and moved my life to California. Coming from upstate cold New York to Southern California was all in itself a big change at 21 years old. But I realized very pretty quickly there that was also not the place for me. But I was working at that time now in sales and kind of your own little business, and moved from California to Nebraska to Baltimore, and then to DC, and then finally to North Carolina, all within 3 years or something. And so that was a whirlwind time. But I kind of did things backwards, where most kids wait tables and have odd jobs when they're in college. I was working in student government, and they paid me to do that. And then after college, and after a professional job, quote unquote, I went and waited tables and bartended. And so because I was all right, I don't want to do this sales thing anymore. I was 24 years old, and I was all right, I don't know what I want to do, but let me figure it out. And so then while I was in Baltimore, I said, I'm really attracted to old homes and architecture and things like that. And then I had an opportunity to move to North Carolina in Charlotte, and that was with an ex-boyfriend. And he was well, I'm moving here. And I was well, I guess if we're going to make things work, I should go with you. That's how it worked. But then after being there for about a year, I got my real estate license and was working a job, but I became really depressed, and I didn't know why. And I wouldn't have called it depression at that time. I just thought I was unhappy in my relationship. And I had had even ups and downs in college also, that I just thought, oh, well, I'm just not interested in these subjects, or I'm not really sure what's going on. And so just that's a little bit start of like the ups and downs, right? And you're like, and you try to get help, you go and maybe to some therapy. And in the US, it's really not that easy to find a good therapist. And then if you do, like, it depends on if you have a good job and you have insurance and things like that. And then a therapist to recommend going to a psychiatrist, finding another psychiatrist. This is like it just makes it difficult. And so people just tend to not get the mental health help that they need. I was one of those people. I didn't get really great help because I didn't really think there was anything wrong. I just thought I was sad in my relationship. So we broke up. But I was in this great career in real estate at that point, working for a home builder. And after we broke up and I got my own apartment and I was doing really well in this career, I was basically on what you would call like a little high. So, you know, fast forward 15 years and I'm 40 years old and I'm in a really good career, had bought myself a beautiful house, but I had had all these ups and downs. And midsection of all that, like between let's say 28 and 40, like around 35, I had a regular doctor say, do you think maybe you're manic depressive? And I was like, oh no way. Oh my gosh. I'm just really like gung ho and I'm really successful in business. But I didn't know what bipolar was. I didn't know what manic depression was. That's what they used to call it. But at 40, 38, somewhere around there, I got diagnosed with ADHD, which is like attention hyperactive deficit disorder is what they call it in the US. For girls, some girls, women can be hyperactive, but most of them aren't. Their characteristics of that disorder show in different ways. And it's usually like either extreme hyper focus, like on work or sports or crafts or different things, and then inattention in other areas. And inattention usually comes for like the things that are tedious and that we hate to do. And I'm really kind of keeping this trying to at a bare minimum, I guess you could say, but hard to explain all of the different ways that it affects people. But I had gone down a rabbit hole because I had had so many ups and downs, but they weren't these crazy highs where that you see on TV where people are having visions of God or think that they're God or going out and spending on buying new cars and so many clothes and making huge purchases. But I definitely was like buying a new used car when I maybe shouldn't have and extending myself, and I would have ups and downs because I was in real estate. I would go gangbusters. And I thought that that was just my normal self. And then when I would fall into a depression, when I was younger, they didn't last that long, maybe a couple of months. And that sounds like a long time for a lot of people. But for me, I was kind of used to like a semester or 2 months out of a semester when I was in college, looking back, flashing back. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I have had these ups and downs. And now that I'm aware enough at 40 years old, I finally, after the hyperactive ADHD diagnosis, I was still having problems because they put me on medicines that were for ADHD, but they weren't for bipolar. And so they created a higher high this time. And then after I couldn't keep up with doing the things and running my life and being super successful, I couldn't keep up with it myself. I had this house of my own by myself, not married, no kids, 2 dogs, big house that was so much more than one person ever needed. And I loved my projects and I loved designing things and I loved gardening and I loved my career. But then in a crash time, it would be like, it wouldn't happen all of a sudden, but you could feel it building up. Like, I just can't keep up with this. What am I doing? I'm not getting enough sleep. I'm not getting enough anything, right? And you're just like driving yourself very thin. Like I felt like a frayed thread, and you're just starting to untangle just a little bit. You're not going so completely crazy that other people notice, but you feel it inside. And so for me, over the years of just these ups and downs, and I think also for females, our hormones changing as we're getting older. And I had really no idea about it. And then COVID. And I was already in some depression that time, and COVID hit. And so I just started going down rabbit holes of different things and how do I heal myself and what do I do? And that's when I got diagnosed with the bipolar. Started treating it medically with drugs, things, because that's what the psychiatrists all want you to do. And the drugs just didn't make me even think clearly. Not only was I not myself, like emotionally, okay, fine to have some stability, that's a good thing. But if I couldn't have a conversation, literally, in the last 5 minutes of me talking, every minute I would have said, every other sentence would have been, oh my gosh, what was that word again? What's that word again? What's that word again? And it's just normal words. And so I said, this is not working for me
Wow,
either.
that's very scary, no?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, when you have even this bipolar, then it's already, I think, crazy. But when you get then medicines where you're not feeling connected anymore
Yeah.
to yourself,
Right.
how does must be feel? Like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, you're not feeling connected to yourself at all. And then I'm trying to still work, right? And so luckily in real estate, the good part would be where clients would need me and it wouldn't get me completely out of depression, but it would get me out of the house, right? So I might be in my house for an entire week straight where I would not go anywhere or see anyone because maybe all the clients that I had at that time were just needing paperwork done and things that I could communicate to the lenders and the attorneys and things like that. Maybe they've already seen a lot of houses and actually under contract, or vice versa. Like if I was helping a client sell their house, maybe all the pictures are done and all the listings, and now I'm just scheduled. Or I've just gotten so far into a depression where, like, okay, I'm not taking a lot of new clients. But if I had like repaid clients, or I was feeling just good enough, like, okay, yeah, let's take them on, they would help pull me out a little bit, right? Through the years, I could see that, okay, that's helpful. But if I get too far down in depression and I'm not taking clients, then my income's also going down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just so many of these ups and downs financially, emotionally, everything. And then I'm on medicine and I'm trying to come out of a depression. And I do have clients and I can't even hold a conversation. That is really bad. So I'm like, okay, the clients I do have, I'm going to end up losing if I can't even explain to them what's happening in their transaction here. So I said, all right, something's got to change. I really need some lifestyle changes. And through that time, I was having some weird spiritual things also happen. And
What kind of spiritual things happen?
So I started, as I was going down these rabbit holes and during COVID, one thing would lead to another, learning about like biogenetics and then learning about how mushrooms can affect like literally your DNA and alternative therapies. And so alternative therapy for depression, for manic depression, bipolar 1 or 2. So I was diagnosed with bipolar 2. So those are lower forms of the mania. So you don't have these like delusions, but you have these highs where you're just super successful and things are going really good. I thought that was my norm,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because a lot of my life wasn't up. But then I'd have like a little higher up. And then I just couldn't keep up. The spiritual stuff, I can't even pinpoint like one thing during that time, but I would say that I started during my rabbit hole down into alternative therapies for depression, for bipolar. I found this ketamine treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that was a huge opening, if I have to say like one thing. And ketamine in US, people call it like special K. It's like they use it as a party drug, but it's actually a drug that's been in use for like 50 years or more, like since the 40s or 50s in the US anyhow. And they use it in like wartime. They use it for keeping people like their body's not completely shutting down. So it's like an anesthetic for you to not feel pain during surgeries. They use it in veterinary sciences. And so there's legitimate uses for it. And what they found is that drug, and also like, I think it's called MDMA, are also some other ones for like people with PTSD. So I was finding all these alternative therapies. And so luckily, there's actually treatment with ketamine, which is an IV drug administered at a lower dose than what it would be to have a surgery, but a high enough dose compared to like what people use for party drugs, where it's unsafe, not in a stable environment. And doctors administrate it and they keep you under observation during the whole entire time. And there's a whole series of times that you should go, like a regimen. And so you go to the doctor's office. And so I went and I talked to the psychiatrist about it. And my psychiatrist, when I had asked him, are there any alternative therapies? He said, no, we don't really do that. And we just, treat symptoms. And I was like, that's just unacceptable for me. And so that's when I started doing my own research. I was like, I don't want to cure. I don't want to just treat a symptom. I want to find a cure. I want to find what's going to really help me help this problem, right?
To find the root, no?
Yeah.
Like that's sometimes why treatment is never successful. We go to a doctor, a therapist or whatever, get the pill, just take it, and then think these things are done. No. It's like when you put also like something on your wound, no, it has to be completely healed.
You have to heal it, right?
Yeah, and therefore you need to know the root. Otherwise it stays.
Right.
And maybe it's getting a bit better, but it has to taken out, yeah.
Right. You have to, I think there's so many bad things I could talk about US, and there's obviously so many really great things about US. But one of the really bad things is our healthcare system. Really, truly, honestly, so many people will talk about it. Being in India, I could give you so many examples of how much better it is in so many ways, but no one in the US would ever listen to me about that because, not no one. I would say, maybe 10% would, 15% would. But it really is a big, big problem. And so when I went for these ketamine treatments, it literally is like you do not feel your body anymore. You don't even feel like as it's coming on, it's like you're still having some thoughts, but they're not regular thoughts. You don't see visions like you hear of people like on hallucinogenic drugs with mushrooms or things like that, or LSD. I mean, I've never done LSD. I have taken mushrooms medicinally for this also, but completely different experience. This ketamine was literally like, in that time when you take that drug that you are not your body. You are not your brain, your mind in that way. Spirit is literally something else. And that was, I hate to use the words like life-changing, but really, if I'm being honest, like, yeah, it kind of was. I've always been a spiritual person, not a religious person, but having that experience, not like the one time, because I guess it was just over multiple courses of times, and then really thinking about what was that experience. And it literally is. It's like, I call it like defragging your computer, and you're clearing the pathways. And so what that it does is it literally helps you to clear out the pathways that your neurons are normally taking all the time, and it helps you to develop new ones. That's their like technical way about it. And I would say, yeah, it absolutely does that. And it doesn't take just one treatment. It takes multiple ones because you are literally building new connections.
And you rewrite your own software, no?
Yeah, exactly. And that truly helped me to start seeing my body as a vehicle for my soul, my spirit, and going, wow, our bodies legitimately are biological computers. We need to sleep to repower ourselves. We need to eat to repower ourselves. We need sunlight. I mean, we're literally like a walking solar panel. If you think about it, right? We're like a computer that's walking, that has all of these amazing cells that, like a solar panel, they help to feed and nourish our bodies so that it can operate properly. And so that experience helped me to look at things and go, I was never a super healthy person. I wasn't like unhealthy by any means. I exercised when I was not depressed, right? I loved being in the garden. And even before this stuff, I could see, so you asked me what spiritual changes, and they don't seem like big spiritual changes, but I noticed as I got older, I wanted to spend more time outside in my garden. I wanted to spend time with my plants and my animals, my dogs, and the connections that I felt with them. And I'm not trying to be like woo-woo or whatever, but I started to see little shifts in me. Like, I've always cared about bugs, but then all of a sudden, like, I started really caring about bugs. Like, why are you going to squish that bug? Like, let's save it. I'd be in my mother's pool and I'd be scooping up the little beetles out of the pool and putting them on the side. And she's like, just throw them. I'm like, no, there's no need for that. Like, little shifts you start to see, and whether it's the universe, the world, other people, but it is literally, I think, your own personal vibration And the little bit more it raises, and the little bit more it raises, and the little bit more it raises, there are these little tiny shifts that you notice, And so the ketamine, I think, helped with a bigger shift.
Accelerated, probably,
Yeah. And then I was open during college. I was never open to trying like mushrooms. I don't know if you want to talk about any personal experience, but like I, had friends who would just do mushrooms for fun or whatever in college. And I was so afraid of a bad trip. I knew I would have a bad trip, right? That's what they talk about. But during my research for the bipolar, I realized like, oh, people could use this to heal themselves in different ways. And it's not about having a trip. It's about connecting to something that is really, really ancient. And if you look at all of these old records and even in the Bible, it talks about like Anamina mushrooms, I believe, something, it's like they talk about the somas in, Hindu scriptures and things like that. Like every religion has some kind of medicinal herbs that they've used.
Yeah, right. And I think there's even, I think we talked about it lately, about this Netflix documentary where they showed how they use, of course, with doctors or psychotherapists, how to use all this so-called drugs. It's meant to be, they are bad, but I guess there are so many illegal things in our world which are even more worse, like food, like how many like sugar, alcohol.
Oh my gosh.
It's just like, is in comparison, of course, people get addicted to drugs. No way, that's not good, of course.
Right.
But I think there always, for an addiction, there has to be also root. There's a need why people get addicted, not just, I think, for example, also in my mom's head, there's when you take once a drug, you get addicted immediately. That's bullshit.
Right.
That's not
but that's
the
what
case.
We're taught.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is in US, opioids are such a big thing and they're prescribing it. And so I just had a surgery for my hip here in India and they didn't just prescribe me one opioid. I was in the hospital for 7 days. That was my choice. I could have left after like 3, 4 or 5 days, but their standard is like 4 or 5 days. In US, it's one night and then they send you home the next day with a bunch of drugs. And yeah, you're in pain at that point. Instead, in India, they gave me a spinal tap with, to block the pain of where they did the surgery. And then they, triated me on different drugs that are not very strong opioids. And it's just the difference is night and day of the treatment. And my total expense was like $6,000. Wow. I would have paid that just as my copay on my American insurance. But this was the entire hospital stay, everything, all drugs. And then I had personal home care for PT that was like $500 a visit, or 500, not dollars, sorry, people listening, rupees, which is literally like $6.50 something in US. So it's just absolutely crazy, of just the difference there. But yeah, when we think about taking our health into our own hands and what a biological machine we really are, I think we tend to like really start looking at what is good for us. And I can tell you the healthcare system, the food industry in the US, these things are not good for us. And that really started putting me on I had always had a thought that one day I would love to travel and, have multiple houses around the world. And then I started looking at it like, I don't need all these things. I don't need this big house. Don't want to have to work all the time so hard just to afford this big house that stresses me out all the time. And I loved my house. I mean, I found this beautiful old rundown house and I renovated the whole thing, but not in a way that will make it home super modern. I love old historic homes. I got the house registered on the historic registry and I worked so hard on it. And I really, even thinking about it now, I'm sad I sold it, but I'm so glad I sold it at the same time. I made a bunch of money. And so that was the plan. Okay, I don't want this life anymore. What do I want to do? How much money do I really need to live on? Not that much in comparison. I bought an old like tow behind trailer that I was renovating. And so I was working on that while I was getting my house ready for sale and things like that. And I quit my career, sold my house, was working on the van, went to like house sit for my aunt or something. And my friend said, hey, let's take a trip. Or I think maybe I said to her, like, hey, let's take a trip somewhere. And I gave her a list of like 10 places, and India was on there. And she was like, oh, I'm actually going to India in October for a wedding. You want to come? I was like, heck yeah. I said, I don't know if I can come to the wedding, but I'm definitely coming to India with you. So planned to come to India with her. And I had previously, 2 or 3 years before that, met this lama that started a educational society for kids from the upper Himalayan regions. And he would bring them down from there because, especially girls, because girls in Indian and Tibetan and Nepali culture, they're not really highly regarded. Education is not a priority because they're just going to end up getting married and working in house or on fields or whatever. And so instead, he takes some of these girls with, the parents want them to. They're like, yeah, please take them, and helps get them good education. So while I was here, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to spend like a month. My friend went back to US. I said, I'll take a month and travel India. Went and saw this lama, met all the kids, saw all the great work he's doing in person because, lots of people have been giving money from the US, and it's good to see firsthand, like, what's happening? How are they spending the money? What's going on? So my aunt had been sponsoring him, and so I met him and he said, come. So I said, great, I'm going to come. Toured the Himalayas. And then he said, oh, well, you should go here, you should go there. And so one of those places, I said, oh, I want to go Amritsar. And then they said, oh, if you're going to go Srinagar, then you should also go to Leh. And I was like, oh, I've never heard of Leh, so sure, let me find out about it. And while I'm in Leh, meet this young man, just very briefly on the street. He says, hi, how are you? Now, being in India, you're a white person.
Okay, another one.
You get stopped all the time. So I really don't think much of it. I'm used to people stopping me now, being in India for like approximately a month at this time, not quite. Two handsome young men, younger than me men I knew, but I didn't know how young. Stopped on the street. Oh, hi, how are you? Where are you from? Okay, I'm from US. And okay, nice to meet you. And then I went into the store I was going into, and then they left. No big deal. And then I'm walking down the street, and another guy says, oh, hi, how are you? Oh, you should go to this market, go to that market. And we just start talking, making friends. I have no interest in this other guy whatsoever. Friendly person. You make lots of friends in India very easily. And so I go around the market, and then we go and get some chai. And then the other two young men from earlier come walking in. I'm like, oh, hi guys, how are you? You want to join us for chai? Little did I know, they were walking past, they saw me inside and said, oh, we should go in there. So they come in, they end up sitting. We have like 2-hour conversation about politics and world politics and our backgrounds and life in both places, US and here, and what's going on. And we exchange Instagrams and WhatsApp, and no big deal. You do that so much when you're traveling. I still, again, didn't think much of it. So he starts texting me and messaging me. And I just, at first it was very innocent. And just, finding about each other's cultures and things like that. But then he starts being a little bit more flirty, right? And, oh, well, I am interested in you. And I'm like, oh no, because sorry, I left this out. I found out he's 22 years old at the time. And I was like, oh my God. So absolutely, there's no way I'm going to be interested in him. At the time, I'm 44 years old. So twice his age, literally, at that time. So I really thought nothing of it. And he starts flirting with me. And I'm like, oh, let me help you find a young, cute girl. Have lots of babies with her. Because I'm like, I don't want any kids. You're so young. You definitely want kids. You want to do this and that. And he's just, continuing. Now, we had only been in Leh. Sorry, I'm not a very good storyteller. I'm jumping all over the place.
I good.
So literally after that time, just having coffees, he left the next day. I was there for 2-3 more days. No big deal. I go to an ashram in South India where my cousin was staying to see him before he left from his trip. And I stay in the ashram. And so I'm in this ashram and this young man's messaging me, right? And it wasn't like a silent retreat or anything. It was just me going, have some time, peace, meditation, quiet time. And in the evenings I would, check messages, do whatever. But he's flirting with me and it's very obvious. And we're just talking back and forth and I'm trying to push him away. And I'm like, oh, I'll be like an auntie and you can come visit in US with your wife and kids. And he's like, oh, gross, don't say that. I like you more than an auntie. And I'm like, okay, this is just, I don't know. But then he invites me to come to a wedding in his home, in his village. And I'm like, that might be cool as a friend. And so I'm like, let me consider this. And so, because I knew I was coming back to North India. And I said, okay, this is just an opportunity. No harm in that, right? But just the more we're talking and the more I'm in this ashram going, if I left my whole entire life behind, I literally had no intention to meet a man. That was not on my list at all. I was very like secure and peaceful in my life and looking forward to traveling the US in my camper van and living like kind of the road style life and just having that freedom. Yeah, meeting a person takes away that freedom, right? A little bit. And it brings other positive things in other positive ways, but that was like at the bottom of the list, was not planning that. And especially someone half my age. It's just, I was like, okay, I do have interest in this person. He's handsome, but there's so much more to him than his handsomeness. And that was a thing. We had books that we had both read and books that like Think and Grow Rich and Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and that you wouldn't think the normal 22-year-old really would have read, especially, in India. He doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke, he likes quiet places, he doesn't party. He's not your average 20-something at all. I was just like, okay, like the qualities that I'm looking for in a person, he has. And so am I going to be closed-minded because society judges me? Or am I going to be open to seeing just what happens just by going to this village wedding, spending more time with him? Or am I just going to shut it down completely? And I said, okay, if I'm really following this path of like, let the universe lead, let's see what happens, then I should just be open to it. And so that's what I did. And here I am now, 2.5 years later, married. But it was a whirlwind. It was.
Yeah, that's so cool. No, I think also like you, I think immediately when we met each other, you told me this, and then I was also curious now how this is gonna work. But that's so interesting, no? Because you're like a woman and it's the age gap of 22, and I think the other way around. It's so
more
common.
normal. Yeah.
Or there's not so much judgment from the outside. So that's also very interesting. Why is it like this?
Yeah.
And the end, what you said, no, it's about two souls are meeting, loving each other, start loving each other, and feeling connected. So what's the point? And how was it for you then, like being from the West, marrying an Indian man, and also now you live in Delhi, in India. So how is it for you?
Yeah. So at first, I mean, it was strange. Like none of it really makes sense of how we met and like why we were attracted to each other. We like to say like our souls were just waiting for his body to grow up to make it like more acceptable. I've always had this like really big draw to come to India and never had an opportunity before. Everything just kind of falls into place. And that's really how everything has been with us. It just worked. Like you would think like his family would have had a big problem. They did. And then they met me and they liked me. They still didn't like the idea that I was older. They didn't like the idea that I didn't want kids. And at first he said he wanted kids. And then I explained to him like why I didn't. He was like, it started to look at different. So that right there is like difference of, marrying someone from a different culture. And most cultures, people expect they're going to get married, have kids, because that's just what everybody does. Well, everybody doesn't necessarily want that. There's a small set of us, like myself, who literally since ever I can remember, I've never wanted kids. I think kids are great. They're just not for me. And they're just a huge responsibility. And I think if more people were honest with themselves, there would be a lot less kids in this world that should be. And, and Elon Musk will tell you differently, but I think that there's so many kids that have so many traumas because the parents were not ready to be parents and they should have never been parents.
Yeah, and I think I think growing up a child is like a real job. No, it's like, and therefore you have to have also like, of course, everyone's decision, but I think also, to really, that being a parent, there is so much more than just the wish, or also like, that you really question yourself, do you really want to be a mom or dad?
Yeah.
Or is it just because everyone else does it? Like
Yeah.
you have to be really honest, I think, to yourself
Yeah.
and why you want to become a parent. Is it for what is the intention behind? Yeah.
Right. And in Indian culture, yeah, for a man, like especially, I mean, in any culture, the woman's always the one who's taking responsibility, right? Like 90% of the time. Yeah, there's amazing single dads, there's amazing co-parents that really do good teamwork, but they're not that common. It's not the standard, right?
No, and in the end, there's mostly, I think this also very like in a way, like from the beginning, naturally, no, because
Yeah.
the child depends on the mom.
Mom.
You have to feed them, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. So that's, but yeah, I think also, so why there are two people brought this child to this earth now, and also, of course, the woman did the job to give birth, but in the end, it's like for both are responsible for that, but it's much easier to bring as a man, bring yourself out of this.
Yeah. And so the good part was that even though Indian culture, if you look at it from the whole, right, there's always exceptions, you can't just generalize, but in a generalizing kind of way, there's still arranged marriages here. That was what Randeep was expected was probably going to happen. He was studying for government exams. He was there in Leh to take a government exam. So he was, and it got changed from Delhi location. So he wasn't even supposed to be in Leh. I wasn't supposed to be in Leh, but we both happened to be there on the same night. And just, I mean, there's some, like, whatever you call it, kismet, and, this universe, luck, whatever you want to call it, something is there. There was absolutely, I wouldn't say a spark, but there was a spark of some kind when I first met him that wasn't there, like on your normal just meeting someone. I mean, I stopped in my own head, you have these quick conversations with yourself, like, oh, very handsome young man, right? But there's just more to it. There's that something there that's unexplainable. So when I met his parents, and it wasn't parents both, because again, very common in India where the woman and the man might live apart. The husband might be off working in a different city altogether. So his dad is in the village with his grandfather, taking care of the cows and the fields and things. His mother and sister-in-law and two nieces are all in Delhi. And Randeep was also in Delhi studying for his exams, taking all these exams, passing all these exams. And if you know anything about Indian culture, passing government exams in India and getting offered a job in the government is a really big deal. And so he had his life planned out that he was going to get a government job and he was going to go work this government job and then have an arranged marriage. Our sister-in-law, Pooja, is a teacher working in Delhi, and that's why she's in Delhi, and our mother-in-law, and that's why our mother-in-law is there. She has two young children, so she's helping to take care of the kids. But the good part is that there's his sister-in-law and brother had a love marriage, and so they're becoming more common in India. Still not as common as arranged marriage. So we had that going for us, one. Two is his mother is 13 years older than his father. And so, like, how does that happen even in India? Well, it happens because his mother married his uncle. And his uncle and mother had a son, his brother, and then his uncle died. But the younger brother is now Randeep's father. So he married the mom, even though he was so much younger than the mom, because a widow or a woman on her own in a village kind of lifestyle is just not acceptable. And so the younger brother took the role as now, married to this woman.
When the death of Randeep, your husband
so
died,
now so Randeep's father is actually his brother's uncle. If that makes sense. So because his uncle had died. So his brother calls his dad Chacha because that's uncle, but his Randeep's dad is his dad. And so there was also that, because it was normal for him in his household where his mother was so much older than his father. So I think that made it a little bit more acceptable for us as well. And people say I don't look my age. I don't feel like I act my age. So I think that also helps, is that when you meet someone, if you just look at a number, if you just look at paperwork, it's like, wow, crazy, right? But then when you meet us, you see the relationship we have. Randeep also looks older. When I found out how old he was, I was like, holy cannoli, like,
No,
wow,
yeah,
so
same
young.
for me both. Like you looked very similar, like maybe a few years in between, but nothing like not
20 years. He literally could be his mother. I mean, my mom was young when she had me at 18. And so, like, I'm like, and at the beginning, I was like, I literally could be your mother. Like, this is never going to work. Like, and here's the thing. If I can give advice to anyone listening, never say never, because when I was in the US and dating and on the dating apps and things like that, when dating was my priority, I dated like 2 or 3 younger men that were like maybe 6 years maximum younger than me. And I was like, even that is because you're not even high school or college age difference, right? But you have a little bit of enough difference where you don't feel like you have that much in common. So I was like, I'm never dating a younger guy again. Yeah. Now I'm married to one that I'm old enough to be his mother, but we don't look at it like that. Obviously, when you just love is love. And when you don't think about the age, you just love this person. But of course we think about the age. And at the beginning we had a lot of talks about, oh, you're going to change your mind about kids. And I told him, and I was also realistic with myself, because he is so much younger. I have to remember, he hasn't had the life experiences that I've had. I don't want to take away from some of his life experiences. Some things would have been same for him. He would have been married at a young age anyway, 25, 24, something anyhow. That wasn't that much difference. But to who he was married to and how old and having kids or not having kids, those things obviously are different. But I realistically, before I allowed anything to happen, like I was like, okay, what if he does leave me because he decides at 30 or 35, no, I really want to have kids. And I just thought to myself, I'm a grown woman. Like, I will love him enough to let him go. And that's a hard thing to think about, but it's true. And I will miss him, but I will love him enough to let him go. And I had to be real with myself on that, And I don't think it's going to happen, but I had to go, what if?
What if? Yeah.
And
wow.
am I prepared enough emotionally to let that happen without having a complete breakdown, And I had these hard conversations with myself. But the thing that he talked about since the beginning, because when people get married in India, they don't get married like we do in the US and go, oh, if it doesn't work out, it's okay. He's like, I'm marrying you for life.
Yeah, there's like much more commitment, no? Like they're not in the West where you think, oh, is there a better opportunity? No, there is commitment and you go through all the ups and downs, and that's fine because you love this person. They love what I found over here, or also maybe in some European countries, but not like, for example, in Germany. There, the love is pure and it's unconditionally.
Yeah.
And it's not like of course, we never know what's gonna happen in life.
No.
We are not God, or not the universe.
The thing that we align on so much is like, we both respect ourselves and each other so much, like we wouldn't cheat on each other. Because in Indian culture also, like, they don't talk about it a lot, but when they do, you hear about it. And there's a lot of cheating going on because divorce is such a taboo thing that they would rather do the cheating behind closed doors. Some of them even out in the open. The wives know about it, but they're not going to stop it because they would rather not be a divorcee. And so, there's a lot of things on that level. And I just have always told him, like, and he's like, he's more worried about me cheating on him than I am about, him cheating on me. And I would never cheat because that's just not who I am as a person. But absolutely, Indian people especially hear about American culture and how we have more sex freely, we have more relationships freely, we have had more partners, and I love my husband. Any person I've ever been with, I've always had a commitment to them. And that's just not something I would do. But we definitely know that that's not the standard in America or a lot of other places. People just cheat, and they do. So we've had a lot of very open conversations, and it's so much more comfortable talking to him than so many other relationships I've ever had. And we had these hard conversations at the beginning because we had to. Because when I met his family, they were like, you're just going to have fun with him and leave. Here they think a lot of Americans do, a lot of Westerners do that. And a lot of Westerners do that. They come and they have flings and they just think no big deal. because they have relationships at home and that aren't as, meaningful, as impactful. And I'm not saying that they're not meaningful and impactful, but to an Indian who plans to marry someone for life, they don't just date. And it's dating culture is becoming more common, I guess, in some of the bigger cities and things. But I'm talking, this man is from a village and his family has a more village mentality. But I'm also very blessed. We're both very blessed because they're still open-minded enough to accept me and they'll love me and do ceremonies with me. And I feel completely part of the family. And I'm so blessed to have that. Some people don't have that even with their, partners' families in general. And yeah, it's a really big deal.
Wow, very
So,
beautiful. Very
yeah.
touching.
Thank you. You're so cute.
We would have a camera. No, thank
You're
you
making me
for
want to cry.
sharing. No.
Yeah.
Wow, it's very special. And I think, wow, with your story, I find it so wow, just wow. I'm missing words. Even if I would say it in German, I would miss words. I think it's such a good example what love is, or meeting two souls which are fitting, where not age determining. Like you also say sometimes, no, he has an older soul than
He
you.
does. He really does.
And
Yeah.
when I look to each other, you spend 24/7 in this small room, and then, or being together. And I know from myself, wow, I need so much space. And you also said you would have never done this before, but with him, it's not a problem.
It's not. Well,
so
everybody has their little sets, right?
But this you have also in a normal life, no?
But you would have. I've had more arguments with friends traveling than I have with my husband. It's at the beginning we had to say, well, I don't know what's here, but something's here, and we had to be honest with each other and go, look, I am here and I'm traveling India and I'm not going to stop traveling India. You are so new, but you have an opportunity right now because traveling in India, traveling in Southeast Asia is not that much more expensive for two people than for one person, right? Yeah, I have food and, two not plane tickets, but when we went to Vietnam, we had a plane ticket. But in general, India is not that expensive. It's not that much more to have a second person. And so I said, look, the only way we're going to know if this is going to work is if you come with me. And he had taken his last exams. At the beginning of our relationship, I was going with him to finish him taking exams and taking his physicals and things like that. And then we talked to his family and talked to him, and we're like, okay, he has an opportunity to travel with me. That's how we're going to really know where this is going, if anywhere, right? And a once in a lifetime opportunity for him to see more of India and potentially the world. Where are we going to go? We didn't know, but I knew we were going to travel India. And so we just, okay, yeah, let's do that. And we just fit so good together right from the start. But it wasn't I'm going to have a fling. I went into it thinking I will likely marry this man, but if things don't work out, the worst that happens is, his family's going to be really mad at me and he's going to be upset with me, and it will only help him to understand his own country and other people in, the country and that kind of thing. But I went into it fully thinking, okay, we're likely going to get married, but we don't know for sure. And I wasn't going to change. I mean, I was 44 years old. I was not going to just say, oh yeah, I'll marry him now. No, I had been in other relationships that were long relationships that I've lived with people and then decided I didn't want to marry them. So I knew but I also knew at this age, because of those experiences, what I wanted out of a person. And I was very happy living by myself and being independent and living a life on my own. I didn't need a man. That was not oh, I just need to be in love so bad. No, being in love is amazing. Also, being secure in who you are is really awesome and amazing. And knowing that you can handle anything in life, even when you have bipolar, maybe not as well as you used to in your 30s, but then in your 40s, you're like, I have this freedom. And that's what I was looking forward to. But then this man comes along. So I said, no, there's something here. I don't know what it is, but I'm not going to just let it go. So we started traveling. And when you travel with someone, you really, really know the good, the bad, the everything. And we definitely had our times where, he is in his early 20s and I'm in my 40s and I've lived this whole life and we have a language barrier because he didn't speak even as good English as he does now 2 years ago. And so you have to learn a lot of patience. But because of the love, we had more patience. We had more understanding. We asked questions to clarify things with each other because you love the person and you want to make sure that you're understanding right and not just assuming what they're saying, right? And so, and the things were just easy and beautiful. And so, yeah, we traveled India and then we were like, okay, I would love for you to meet my family. Wait times for visas to do that are really long in India. Change in the US rules where you can apply for a tourist visa from any country, from any embassy, not just your home embassy. So we went to Vietnam because the wait times there were like 3 days in comparison to 2 years here. I mean, benefits to big population in India and downfall, right? So we went there. Unfortunately, he didn't get approved because he was young and didn't have a job. And he said, I want to meet my girlfriend's family. These are all, just don't do that, guys. If, yeah, but now it's playing to our benefit because now that we're getting his visa and green card now, they saw like, yeah, we've been in a relationship and you saw that he was my partner before. And traveling all that time solidified things. So when we got back from the trip after traveling 6 months, I said, yeah, we agreed, both of us decided, like, I don't want to be without you. I want to spend my life with you. From the beginning, from the get-go, he's like always singing the Ed Sheeran song, Sharon song, like, oh, until we're 70, but we changed it to like 90 or something. He's like, I'm gonna take care of you when you're older. And it's like, but what am I gonna do? I don't want to live one more day without you. And I'm like, oh my God, you're just the sweetest thing ever. And he's just this sweet, romantic, they say like you find the person and it will a lot of times not come in the package you ever thought. So just be open. You have to be open. You just have to be open. And if that's the lesson anyone should learn from this is just, who cares what other people think? Do what feels good to you, because you're the one who has to live with the person. You're the one who has to live your life. And if people want to say shit, they're going to say shit anyway because they're going to complain about something. If not you, somebody else.
Yeah, right. That's so true.
Yeah,
that's so beautiful. No, wow. Very cool. Like, I just look at the time.
Sorry.
No. I think we can continue for ages. Maybe we have to do another episode.
No.
I just want to ask one last question because I ask this question always to all my guests. So when you, from now, the Meghan who you are right now, when you could ask a question, send a message to your 18 years old version, the Meghan who was 18 years old, what kind of message would you give her?
I would tell her to start thinking about what she really wants out of life, out of love. Who does she want to become as a person? What are the qualities that she, I feel like I've always chased those things, but what do you want versus what society expects out of you? Because I was chasing a lot of dreams before to try to impress a lot of other people. And a lot of the things that I did, I also was very proud of. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, what do you want? What do you need to feel comfortable in this world? Love, finances, like the space. Because like I love traveling, and what I've realized now is like I love traveling, but I also like a home that's yours, that you can feel safe in, that you can decorate however you want, that you can have all your books and your things. But I don't need a lot of things. But there's certain things. So yeah.
Simplify your life. Yeah.
Simplify your life. What do you want? What are the things that are important to you? And a lot of that, you still won't know at 18. But if you start asking those questions at 18, that's good. Instead of teaching kids to just hustle. That's
hustle and perform,
yeah.
And being in this performance.
Yeah, just go make all this money.
Yeah.
Just get all these accolades and awards and achievements and have a nice big house and a fancy car. No,
grow as a personality, like go deep down in there, and every person of us know there's so much treasure. We just have to dig it out, but it's just covered with so many layers that we have a hard connection to get it, no?
Yeah.
So
I read this book when I was 21 called The Celestine Prophecy.
Yeah, I know it. Yeah.
Terrible movie, really good book.
I just read the book, yeah.
It's always stayed with me. But if I had gone down that path, allowing myself to think more spiritually in connection with trees and people in that way that they describe in that book, those are real things. It's supposed to be a fictional book, but that's real stuff.
I think it's a fictional book, but I think this is how our society will look like in a few years. So
and
I think he had this vision and just was writing it down.
I think he had a download or a channel or whatever, and that's a whole nother episode we can talk about because we have been talking a lot.
No.
But so but I wouldn't change my life either. All the lessons I've learned, all the experiences I've had, my life is beautiful, and I've had so many experiences. But so thank you for asking me to share. Sorry I ramble so much. I'm not a great storyteller.
No, Megan, don't worry about
it so much.
Thank you so much. I was so touched, like I was crying, like it was so touching. So thank you so much, Megan, for sharing, for your openness, for your warm heart, for your being and your soul. Like I'm very curious what would happen to you and to your life and everything. So
it'll be good to keep in touch through WhatsApp and Instagram, and you know how the people do, in
this modern world. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye.
you. Hallo und willkommen zurück aus der Folge mit Meghan Barnes. Als ich die Folge geschnitten habe, sind mir wieder die Tränen gekommen, weil ich einfach ihre Geschichte und ihre Liebe mit Randip so berührend finde und so besonders, und dass wirklich Liebe keine Grenzen, keine Konditionierungen kennt, sondern einfach nur pur und unconditionally ist. So, Megan und ich freuen uns riesig, wenn du uns einen Kommentar bei Instagram, bei YouTube oder bei Spotify hinterlässt, wie dir die Folge gefallen hat, und damit du keine Folge mehr von Love, Life and Other Story verpasst, abonniere am besten den Podcast auf Spotify oder YouTube. Und wenn du weitere Informationen zu meiner Arbeit als systemischer Coach oder über systemische Aufstellungsarbeit erfahren möchtest, dann schau am besten auf meiner Webseite vorbei, www.katrinpreisner.com, oder meinem Instagram-Kanal Heart in Mind Journey. Ansonsten wünsche ich dir jetzt erstmal einen ganz, ganz tollen Tag. Fühl dich von Herzen umarmt, deine Katrin.